Dual Cultivation, WN, Chapter 77. What if I become your partner instead? When Su Yang returned to his living quarters, he went directly into the bathroom to clean his sweaty body. After taking a few minutes to clean himself, Su Yang sat on his bed and closed his eyes to cultivate. Meanwhile, Cho Yi sat beside him on the bed, her eyes staring at him with a profound gaze. Why did he come home with that funny smell just now? Where did he go? And most importantly, why does he have the scent of a mature woman all over his body? Cho Yi was curious about his life in this mysterious sect that she knew nothing about, but seeing how Su Yang had already started cultivating, she decided to wait until he was finished. As Cho Yi waited for Su Yang to finish, she used her spiritual sense as a divine Lord Realm cultivator to look around the sect, hoping to understand more about the sect that Su Yang decided to join. Spiritual sense is a unique ability possessed by cultivators above the heavenly spirit realm, and it allows them to scan their surroundings with their spirit, permitting them to look at things from afar without the need to use their eyes. For example, a cultivator with spiritual sense would be able to see the person behind a wall even with his eyes closed. The range of their spiritual sense also grows with the user's cultivation base, so the stronger the user, the further and clearer they can see through their spiritual sense. As for Cho Yi, who was a divine Lord Realm expert, her spiritual sense would naturally cover a large area. It was strong enough to cover every inch of the entire Profound Blossom sect. Whoosh, an invisible ripple suddenly swept the Profound Blossom sect, and many scenes appeared in Chuyu's head. Chuyu's eyes widened with shock at the number of vulgar scenes she'd witnessed from her spiritual sense after just a few moments of peeking. How could there be so many couples in one sect? It's almost as if everyone within this sect was partnered up with another disciple. Additionally, from what she saw through her spiritual sense, there were sexual activities occurring in nearly every house within this sect. And while there are protective barriers in the living quarters to prevent peepers like Cho Yi, when used against a divine Lord Realm expert like her, these barriers might as well be clear glass. This sect, could it be one of those places? Cho Yi looked at Su Yang with conflicted eyes. After a moment, she sighed to herself. She didn't want to think too much and decided to wait until Su Yang was finished with his cultivation. A few hours had passed since Su Yang started his cultivation. In his cultivation, he was absorbing the yin qi he'd obtained from the matriarch during the last few minutes of the assessments, where the matriarch decided to increase the difficulty by adding dual cultivation into the examination. Initially, Su Yang refused to dual cultivate with her, but when he recalled the conversation he had with Zhang Shu Ying at the Burning Lotus auction house, how he decided to cultivate for real so he could quickly return to the four divine heavens, he accepted the matriarch's body into his embrace and dual cultivated with her. I also have Cho Yi by my side now. I cannot afford to be picky with my partners anymore, as I really have no choice but to cultivate with whoever I can in this world and quickly return to the four divine heavens. Su Yang suddenly opened his eyes, and within his gaze flickered with a profound light. His body also began to change when a refreshing feeling spread all over his body, almost as though his warm blood had turned into cool water that relinquished all the stress within his body. He's reached the true spirit realm? Cho Yi immediately noticed the changes in Su Yang's body the moment he succeeded in breaking through the profound spirit realm. However, she was confused at his sudden breakthrough. Although Su Yang was already at the peak of the profound spirit realm before cultivating, how did he manage to achieve the true spirit realm so quickly without using any resources, such as spirit stones or monster cores? Cho Yi also couldn't smell the scent of pills anywhere on his body, so he clearly didn't consume any pills. So he's really... Just as Cho Yi wanted to sigh, Su Yang gazed upon her. If you have questions for me, there is no need to hold them back, he said. Cho Yi silently stared at him for a few seconds before opening her mouth to ask, are you also participating in dual cultivation with the disciples of this sect? Su Yang suddenly chuckled. Is it odd for me to do such a thing as a disciple of this sect? He answered her question with a question of his own. Did you also do it with my mother? Chuyu's following question caught Su Yang off guard, causing his jaw to loosen from surprise. I think you already know the answer to that, said Su Yang after clearing his throat. The room turned silent after Su Yang's words, and Cho Yi closed her eyes to ponder. Did you love my mother? She asked him a moment later, her eyes still closed. Naturally. Do you still love her now? Of course. Then why are you sleeping with another woman? Su Yang suddenly smiled. To cultivate, he answered without taking even a second to think. Is it because you were lacking in resources? What if I supply you with all the resources you need for cultivation? If you need sovereign grade treasures, I will have them by the following day. If you need anything else, I will obtain it even if I have to cross the Jade Sea multiple times. This way, you wouldn't have a reason to dual cultivate anymore, right? After doing the same thing for countless years, dual cultivation has become something like a second nature to me. It won't be easy even for someone like me to suddenly change my path of cultivation. Cho Yi returned to being silent. Although she was already aware of Su Yang's playboy nature, as she'd learned it from her mother after his assumed death, it still bothered her to no end that the man her mother used to love was embracing another woman, especially when she will be staying beside him starting now. Then what if I become your partner for dual cultivation instead? Will that prevent you from touching another woman? Even as she was saying those words, her face was flushed red from embarrassment, and her eyes instinctively avoided Su Yang's eyes. Su Yang's eyes were widened with shock and his mouth that was seemingly trembling slowly opened. However, before he could even utter a single sound, Cho Yui continued, I am obviously joking. Even if my mother is no longer here, I cannot. Cho Yui made an awkward pause in between her sentence before she cleared her throat and continued, Anyway. Although I said that I do not blame you for my mother's death, you are still part of the reason as to why she's dead, and I want you to keep that in your mind every time you embrace another woman. As long as you do not forget your love for my mother, I will not be bothered by I will try not to be bothered by your scoundrel-like actions. As scoundrel-like actions? Su Yang smiled bitterly at her words that felt like sharp swords poking his heart. However, he did not argue with her and promised her that he will never forget even for a moment the love he has for her mother. I promise, he said, still with the bitter smile on his face.